When my daughter sent me a package on Mother's Day that looked like a surprise, my friend Rachel gasped and shouted, "Don't open it." I asked, "Why? What's wrong?" She whispered, "Can't you see?" I looked closer and felt my blood run cold. 15 minutes later, the police were at my door. "You'll never guess what she sent her own mother. I appreciate you being here. Stay with me till the end, and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached." It all started months before Mother's Day, back when I still believed my daughter couldn't truly hate me. The sun had barely cleared the rooftops when Amber showed up at my home, uninvited, unannounced, and clearly on a mission. The knock came harder than usual. Sharp, desperate, demanding. I hadn't even reached the door before I heard voices. Hers, sharp and agitated, and theirs, my grandson's, speaking in hushed, angry whispers. I opened the door slowly, and my heart sank. Amber stood there in full makeup and designer heels, too much glamour for a Sunday morning visit, flanked by her 17-year-old twin boys, Jesse and Jordan. The same boys I'd rocked to sleep as babies, who used to run to me with scraped knees and broken toys. Now they towered over me, staring down like hostile strangers. Something was very, very wrong. "About time. You made us wait," Amber said, pushing past me without invitation. Her sunglasses hit my kitchen counter with a sharp crack. "We need to talk. Now." Rachel, my wonderful neighbor who'd become like the daughter I'd always wished for, stood in the hallway holding fresh flowers she'd brought to brighten my day. The joy on her face melted into concern as she watched this family invasion unfold. We all gathered in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made countless birthday cakes, helped with homework, and bandaged small wounds. Now it felt like a battlefield. My hands hadn't even reached for the coffee pot when Amber's voice cut through the morning peace like a blade. "Mom, you need to understand something right now. I need this money immediately, not when you're dead and buried." Then crash! The wine glass exploded against my kitchen wall. Deep red liquid splattered across the white cabinets I'd painted myself, looking exactly like blood. Amber's face twisted with a rage I'd never seen before, her perfectly manicured hands still trembling from the violence she'd just unleashed in my home. My own daughter, throwing things in my kitchen on a Sunday morning. "Amber, I will not sell this house," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "This is where your father and I built our life together. This is my home." She began pacing across my kitchen like a caged predator, her expensive designer boots I'd probably paid for, clicking aggressively against the floors I'd scrubbed by hand for 31 years. Behind her, my grandsons Jesse and Jordan stood like sentries, their young faces set in expressions of cold judgment. When had they learned to look at their grandmother with such calculated hostility? "Are you actually serious right now?" Amber's voice dripped with venom. "I'm about to lose everything, Mom. I'm drowning in debt, creditors are calling every hour, and you're sitting on $900,000 in equity like some dragon hoarding gold." $900,000. She'd done her homework, knew the exact value of my home. A 2-story with white shutters, a wraparound porch, and rose bushes my late husband planted with his own hands, down to the last penny. Rachel stepped into the kitchen doorway, cleaning cloth still in her hands from helping me prepare our Sunday lunch. The absolute horror on her face was devastating to witness. She was seeing a side of my family I'd managed to hide from her until now. "Maybe everyone should take a moment to breathe," Rachel suggested gently, her voice the only calm thing in this storm. "Don't you dare tell me to breathe." Amber whirled around, her eyes blazing with fury. "And what the hell are you even doing here? This is between me and my mother. You don't belong in this conversation. You're just my mother's neighbor. Never, ever step out of that boundary again." I watched my dear friend's face crumble, as if she'd been physically slapped. Rachel, who treated me with more genuine love and respect than my own daughter had shown me in years, was being attacked simply for existing in my life. This was the woman who brought me soup when I was sick, who helped me with grocery shopping, who remembered my birthday when my own family forgot. And Amber was treating her like an intruder. "Grandma," Jesse stepped forward, and my heart broke at the rehearsed anger in his 17-year-old voice. Why are you being so mean to my mom? She just needs help. Why won't you help us when we're asking nicely? Asking nicely? I looked at the wine stains dripping down my wall. Jesse's words hit me like a physical blow. These boys I'd loved since their first breath, whom I'd raised during Amber's countless disappearances and wild nights. Now they saw me as the villain in their mother's carefully constructed story. Yeah, Grandma, Jordan added, his voice sharp with teenage cruelty that had clearly been coached. Mom says you have all this money, but you'd rather watch us suffer than share even a little bit. She says you could fix everything wrong in our lives, but you just don't want to because you're selfish. My heart shattered completely. These were my grandchildren, children I'd held during their mother's hangovers, children I'd fed when there was no food in their house, children I'd bought school clothes for when Amber spent their clothing money at the casino. Now they were speaking to me like I was their enemy. Your mother's financial troubles are entirely her own creation, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. Her drinking, her refusal to work, her constant stealing from my purse to fund shopping sprees. I don't steal. Amber screamed so loudly that Rachel jumped. Those are emergencies. And I don't have a drinking problem. I have a mother problem. You're the reason my entire life is falling apart. Emergency shopping sprees at the mall? I asked quietly. Emergency jewelry purchases? Emergency spa days while your children wear clothes from thrift stores because you can't afford to buy them anything new. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, she shrieked. Maybe if I had actual support from my mother instead of constant judgment and criticism, I could focus on building a real career instead of just surviving. Career? I stared at her $1,000 handbag. The same handbag she'd bought with my stolen credit card. I looked at her fresh salon highlights, her designer jewelry, her perfect manicure. All paid for with money she'd taken from my purse while I wasn't looking. You've never worked more than 2 days at any job, I said quietly. Every single employer fires you for showing up drunk, or not showing up at all. For the 100th time, I do not have a drinking problem, she screamed, and I could smell the alcohol on her breath even though it was barely noon. I need that money now. Amber slammed her fist on my counter. Put this house on the market. Sell this old house and give me what I deserve as your daughter. Rachel stood frozen in the doorway, tears forming in her eyes as she witnessed the complete destruction of everything she'd thought was beautiful about family relationships. Boys, Amber commanded like a general ordering troops into battle. Tell your grandmother what her selfishness is really doing to our family. Jesse's young face hardened into an expression no 17-year-old should know how to make. We're literally the only kids at school whose grandmother won't help them when they need it. It's embarrassing, Grandma. Everyone knows our grandma is rich but mean, Jordan added with calculated teenage cruelty. Mom tries so hard to take care of us, and you just sit here in your big house being stingy with money you don't even need. It's not her fault that. Every job she gets ends up toxic. Jesse cut in, repeating Amber's words. She said her last boss hated strong women. And the one before that fired her just 'cause she was late a few times, Jordan added. Even though she had a migraine and had to go get her nails fixed from all the stress. And don't forget the one that made her work weekends, Jessie said bitterly. She said she couldn't be away from us that long. They were basically trying to tear apart our family. Yeah, Jordan nodded. She told us people like Grandma never believed in her. That's why she's struggling. Because no one ever gave her a real chance. Each word felt like a knife to my heart. These innocent children, their minds systematically poisoned against the grandmother who'd sacrificed everything for them. That's not true, Rachel said quietly, stepping protectively closer to me. Your grandmother has sacrificed her entire life for your family. Nobody asked you. Amber exploded at Rachel with such fury that my friend actually stepped backward. You don't know anything about my family history. You're just some random woman trying to steal my mother from me. A random woman who treats me with basic human respect, I said, finally finding my voice again. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. Respect. Amber's laugh was ugly and harsh. You want respect? Then act like a real mother and help your daughter when she's drowning instead of watching her sink. Help you destroy yourself even faster? I stood straighter, feeling something shift inside me. I will not enable your addiction and laziness for one more day. There it is, she pointed at me accusingly, her voice rising to a shriek. The real Margaret. Cold, judgmental, selfish. No wonder Dad died so young. Living with you probably killed him. The room fell into shocked silence. Rachel gasped audibly, her hand flying to her mouth. Even the boys looked momentarily stunned by their mother's cruelty. My husband, the love of my life, had died of cancer when Amber was just 17. She knew exactly how much that loss had destroyed me, and she'd just weaponized his death against me. Mom's right, though, Jessie said finally, breaking the terrible silence. If you really loved us the way you claim to, you'd prove it by helping every time we ask. Instead, you just keep everything for yourself like some old miser, Jordan added coldly. No wonder Mom says you're selfish. Maybe we'd visit more often if you actually cared about our family instead of just your money. Rachel moved to defend me again, but Amber cut her off with explosive rage. Shut up. Amber whirled on Rachel like a wild animal. You have no right to defend her. You don't know what it's like growing up with a mother who cares more about money than her own daughter. A mother who raised you completely alone after your father died. I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. A mother who worked 3 jobs to keep you in private school, who gave you everything you ever asked for, who sacrificed her entire life for your happiness. And now it's payback time. Amber's eyes glittered with dangerous satisfaction. Sell the house, give me my rightful share of the money, and maybe, just maybe, I'll let you see your precious grandsons again. The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Rachel's face went completely pale with shock. Listen very carefully, Mother. Amber stepped closer, and I could smell the alcohol on her breath mixed with expensive perfume. I need $50,000 by Friday, or I'm losing everything. My apartment, my car, everything. And when I lose everything, your precious grandsons lose their home too. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Rachel stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks as she witnessed the complete breakdown of everything beautiful she thought existed in family love. You know what I really think, Mom? Amber's voice turned ice cold with calculated cruelty. I think you actually get off on watching us struggle. It makes you feel powerful, doesn't it? Controlling everyone with your precious house money while your own family falls apart right in front of you. The kitchen fell silent except for the sound of wine still dripping down my wall. My own daughter had just declared war on me, and she'd brought my grandsons as her weapons. Get out of my house. The words came from someplace I didn't know I had anymore. Low, steady, final. Amber blinked, then laughed like I'd told a joke. Excuse me? You heard me. I stepped away from the counter, past the shattered photo frame still lying face down. Take your sons and go. Her voice turned syrupy and sharp. You think you can just erase me from your life? She leaned in, eyes glassy, breath reeking of wine and spite. You think this house is safe just because you're still breathing? Rachel stood in the hallway frozen. Tears ran silently down her cheeks. I'll find a way, Amber whispered. You won't live forever. One phone call to adult social services. I'll say you're losing it, confused, paranoid, unfit to live alone. You'll be locked away in one of those depressing nursing homes where you'll rot alone before you can blink. And guess who gets power of attorney once you're declared incompetent? She smiled like she'd won. And once you're out of the picture, she continued, her tone chipper now, guess who'll be legally authorized to sell the house? My blood turned to ice. When I'm your legal guardian because you're too senile to take care of yourself, she continued, her voice rising with each word, and I sell this precious house right out from under you. Remember how you chose to be stubborn instead of helping your family. And as for your precious grandsons? Amber's smile was absolutely chilling as she motioned toward Jessie and Jordan. They'll have their best life ever. I'll have a new start. Everyone wins. Everyone but me, I said. You chose that the moment you allowed that woman jump into our conversations to defend you and make me look bad. She pointed at Rachel like she was diseased. Maybe if you listened to me and gave me what I want, we wouldn't be here. Say goodbye now. Because you will never, ever see your grandsons again. I'll make sure they forget you even exist. I opened the front door. The spring air rushed in, fresh, wild, almost apologetic. It smelled like the life I was trying to protect. Amber, I said without turning around. My voice shook, but I didn't. Take your sons and leave my property. And don't come back until you're ready to have a respectful conversation that doesn't involve stealing my house. This isn't a prize. It's my home, and it won't be yours for failing at life. It's not something you get to rip apart just because your life didn't turn out the way you hoped. Amber didn't move. Leave, I said. Still, she stood there. You'll regret this, Mom. Her eyes narrowed. When you're alone, weak, and forgotten, remember who shut the door. She looked at Jesse and Jordan. Come on, let's go. Grandma clearly doesn't care if she ever sees you again. Let's leave her to enjoy her precious house all by herself. Forever. The boys hesitated. Jordan gave me a fleeting glance, just one heartbeat of uncertainty. Then Jesse paused at the threshold, looking back with confusion clouding his young features. Why do you hate us so much? Is it because we're Mom's kids? She said you always wished we'd never been born. The question broke what was left of my heart. Mom says we'll probably be homeless because of you, Jordan added quietly, his 17-year-old voice cracking with manufactured pain. They believed her. I could see it. The fear wasn't fake, it had just been fed to them, one lie at a time. Boys, let's go, Amber snapped. Your grandmother has made her choice crystal clear. I watched my boys file out like condemned prisoners. My own grandsons now viewed me as their executioner. This isn't over, Amber hissed as she passed Rachel. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, old woman. And I'm going to make sure it costs you everything, she hissed, snatching her designer purse from my counter. Her heels clicked across my hardwood floors like gunshots, each step a nail in the coffin of our relationship. She yanked the door from my hand and slammed it so hard the hallway mirror trembled on its hook. The silence that followed was monstrous. It felt heavier than all their screaming and threats combined. I stood paralyzed at my front door, my hands trembling as they gripped the handle I'd turned so many times to welcome these same people into my home. Through the frosted glass panels, I watched Amber's car roar to life and speed away from my driveway, tires squealing against the asphalt like an angry animal. My own daughter, my own grandsons, gone. Rachel stepped closer, gently placing the forgotten bouquet on the kitchen table. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally, I looked at her, this younger woman who'd never asked me for a thing, never raised her voice, never made me feel like I was only worth what I could give. I wish you were my daughter, I whispered. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Inside, I realized I had a daughter. She just wasn't mine by blood. Rachel didn't answer. She just reached for my hand, and for the first time that morning, I let someone hold me. The bouquet she brought rested in the middle of the table like a quiet apology for everything Amber had shattered. I stared at the wine stain on the cabinet, the one that looked too much like blood. It had dripped all the way down to the floor now. I should have gotten up to clean it, but I couldn't move. Instead, I just sat there, frozen, thinking. 32 years. That's how long I've been a widow. Amber was 17 when her father died. Cancer. It took him fast. Too fast. He was the one who believed she could be anything. He used to read to her at night, even when she was too old to want stories. He never missed a school play, not even the one where she forgot all her lines and cried on stage. He was patient, loving. He adored her. And after he died, I promised myself I would love her twice as hard. For both of us. I never remarried. There were offers. Kind men. One even proposed. But I couldn't do it. Amber needed me. Or maybe I just needed to believe that she did. I gave up everything to raise her. Sold the second car. Quit my job when her twins Jesse and Jordan were born, and moved across town to be closer. When her 100th boyfriend walked out, I moved in for almost 2 years to help. She said she needed my support, that she couldn't handle being a single mother. I watched her babies more than she did. Bathed them. Fed them. Put them to bed while she partied or fought or cried, or claimed she was too overwhelmed. I let her scream at me during breakups. Let her blame me every time something went wrong. I told myself I was doing it for the kids. But the truth is, I was still doing it for her. She'd call me Mommy when she was little, with her hair in little pigtails and her voice full of sugar. I remember her clapping when I bought her a butterfly costume for Halloween. I remember her falling asleep on my lap while I sewed buttons back on her school blouse. Where did that little girl go? When did she become someone who screams at me like a stranger? Who brings my grandsons to my house like weapons, reciting lies I know she fed them? I rose slowly and walked to the living room, where our family photos still hung on the wall. My fingers found the frame I was looking for. Amber at age 6, gap-toothed and giggling, sitting on my shoulders at the county fair. Her tiny hands tangled in my hair. She was laughing at something her father had said just outside the frame. "She wasn't always like this," I whispered, touching the glass. Next to the photo sat something fewer people had ever seen, a drawing from her second-grade art class. 2 stick figures holding hands. One was wearing a big purple crown, and underneath, in crooked crayon letters, it read, "Me and Mommy, the queens of the world." I'd kept it all these years. She used to run up the stairs just to give me a kiss before bed. And now she storms into my kitchen demanding I sell the house we built together. Now she blames me for every crack in her life. Then finally, softly, Rachel's voice reached me, like someone knocking on a door I'd forgotten how to open. "Margaret," she said, like she wasn't sure I could still hear her. "Say something. Are you okay? Was I okay?" I looked around my destroyed kitchen, broken glass scattered across the floor, cushions trampled, the silence still ringing with Amber's threats, and tried to remember when everything had gone so terribly wrong. Rachel appeared beside me again, gently watching as I moved to another frame. Amber at 17, dressed for prom in a gown that had cost me 3 weeks' wages. She looked so beautiful that night, so full of promise and possibility. "She wanted that dress so badly," I murmured. It was in the window of the most expensive boutique in town. I worked double shifts for a month to afford it, but seeing her face when she tried it on, it was worth every hour of exhaustion. And now, she says I killed her father, that I owe her the house, that I'm the reason her life is falling apart. "I raised those boys more than she did," I admitted, the guilt and resentment I'd buried for years finally surfacing. "While she was sleeping off hangovers, or chasing after whatever man had caught her attention that week." Rachel's grip on my arm tightened. "You were protecting them. Was I? Or was I enabling the very behavior that had led us to this moment?" I remembered the father of her twins, Jesse and Jordan's father. A kind man who genuinely tried to love Amber despite her flaws. But she'd treated him like her personal ATM, demanding money for emergencies that were never really emergencies. Designer purses while he worked 2 jobs to pay rent. Spa days while he ate ramen noodles for dinner. He'd lasted 18 months before he couldn't take it anymore. "She drove him away," I said quietly. "Just like she drives everyone away. With her entitlement, her anger, her constant belief that the world owes her something. And through it all, I'd made excuses for her. Covered her rent when she spent the money elsewhere. Paid for groceries when she'd blown the food budget at the casino. Watched her children while she disappeared for days at a time. I'd told myself I was helping. But really, I'd been making it possible for her to never grow up, never face consequences, never learn that actions have results. The boys believe every lie she tells them," I said, my heart breaking all over again. "She's convinced them that I'm the villain in their story, that I'm selfish and cruel for not giving her everything she wants." I pressed my hand to my chest. The ache was so deep it didn't feel like grief anymore. It felt like failure. My own daughter. My own grandsons. And I'd lost them to the very pain I tried to protect them from. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number, but I recognized Amber's writing style immediately. "I hope you're satisfied. The boys are crying because they think their grandmother hates them. But apparently your precious house is more important than your own grandchildren. Don't expect to see them again." I showed the message to Rachel, who read it with growing horror. "She's using them," Rachel said, her voice tight with anger. "She's emotionally abusing those children to get to you." I knew she was right. But knowing it and being able to stop it were two different things. Mother's Day was still a week away. I didn't know it then, but she wasn't done. Mother's Day morning came quietly. No call. No knock. No voicemail full of laughter and love. Just a house full of silence and a table set for no one. The coffee in my mug had gone cold hours ago, but I kept holding it anyway. Across the street, the Arnolds were loading their car with picnic baskets. Mrs. Denbreeze was in her garden, humming softly as she tended to her roses, oblivious to the hollow ache inside my chest. Normal families. Normal mothers who would get flowers and phone calls for Mother's Day. Not threats. Rachel sat across from me, gently stirring her tea. Her parents had died when she was a child, so she came here, to sit with me. To remember what it felt like to be mothered, even if only in the quiet. We'd tiptoed around the amber-shaped crater all week. Neither of us had heard from Amber since that horrible morning. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits with new demands or threats. Just that last scream echoing through my kitchen. Part of me felt relieved to have peace in my own home. Part of me was terrified of what she might be planning. My eyes kept drifting to the phone, hoping Jesse or Jordan might call, that they'd remember the woman who raised them, who held them through fevers and nightmares and their mother's breakdowns. But the screen stayed black. Still, I poured fresh coffee, set the table, turned on the classical music station like I used to when Amber was little, and her father danced her around the kitchen in his socks. The eggs turned to rubber on the stove before I remembered I'd even cracked them. Rachel tried to smile. You know they love you, right? Deep down, underneath all the poison she's poured into their ears. I didn't answer. Because what do you say when children you raised look at you like a stranger? I stared at the front door like it might open. Like it might be them. Like some part of my daughter still remembered who she used to be. Then I heard it. A single thud against the porch wood. Sharp. Precise. Too heavy to be the wind. Rachel's head snapped up. Did you hear that? I was already on my feet. We moved to the window together. Nothing. No footsteps. No van. Just a box. Brown. Medium-sized. Perfectly placed on the welcome mat. Like it had been set there by hand. Rachel's brow furrowed. I didn't hear a truck. Did you? I shook my head. They always make noise. This was different. Should we? I started, then stopped. Should we what? Hide from a package on my own front porch? Rachel was already moving toward the door. Let me get it. She stepped outside, lifted the box gently and brought it in, her expression darkening. Feels light, she murmured. She set it on my kitchen table. What does it say? I asked. Here. She pointed to the label. Plain black print. No logo. No sender. Just my name and the words. Medical supplies, rush delivery. Rachel frowned. Did you order anything? No. And certainly not medical supplies nor rush delivery. There's no return address, she whispered, tracing the edge. No tracking. No company name. Nothing. I stared at the box. It looked harmless. It felt anything but. A chill ran down my spine. What kind of medical supply company doesn't put their name on packages? We stood there staring at the innocent-looking box, as if it had arrived on its own legs, and it might suddenly reveal its secrets. Rachel leaned closer. Wait! Her hand flew out, stopping me. Margaret, do you hear that? I held my breath and listened. At first, there was nothing. Then as I pulled my face closer to the box, we both heard it. A faint scratching sound from inside the box. So faint, I thought I imagined it. But there it was again. Scratch, tap, scrape. My heart seized. The box twitched. Just once. But enough to send me stumbling backward. Rachel's eyes widened. It's moving. My throat closed. What kind of medical supplies move? We both backed away. The scratching was more frantic now. Like whatever was inside was getting agitated and trying to claw their way out of the box. My throat closed. Should I open it? Rachel's head snapped toward me. Absolutely not. Margaret, can't you see? Rachel pointed, her voice tight with alarm. Look at the sides of the box. I looked where she was pointing and felt my heart stop. Tiny holes. Barely visible punctures in the cardboard, so small you'd miss them unless you knew to look. But they were there, little breathing holes, deliberately made to keep something alive during transport. Who would send you something like this? Rachel breathed. But even as she asked the question, I felt a terrible certainty settling in my chest like lead. The timing, Mother's Day, exactly 1 week after our confrontation. The anonymous sender. The fact that it had been left on my doorstep without any delivery truck noise, as if whoever brought it didn't want to be seen. This wasn't medicine. It wasn't a gift. It was a threat, wrapped in cardboard. Alive. The scratching intensified, and now I could hear something else. Faint rustlings, like whatever was inside was more than one, and they were moving around, exploring their cramped prison. I felt like a child again, hiding from a monster under the bed. Except this time, the monster came with a shipping label. But what if? My voice trembled. Rachel's face turned to stone. Her eyes never left the box as she stared at the box like it might explode. Margaret, we shouldn't be in the same room with that. We need to call someone immediately. But who would we call? The police? And tell them what? That someone had sent me a package with holes in it. The box sat on my kitchen table like a ticking bomb, innocent-looking but filled with unknown menace. Whatever was inside seemed to be getting more active, more desperate to escape. The scratchings turned frantic now, like nails against a coffin lid. I thought about Amber's parting words. This isn't over. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, and I'm going to make sure it costs you everything. Had she really stooped this low? Had my own daughter sent me something designed to frighten or harm me on Mother's Day? The scratching stopped suddenly, leaving us in tense silence. Then it started again, much more frantic this time. Whatever was in that box was very much alive, and it was trying to get out. Rachel grabbed my wrist, her fingers digging in hard. Margaret, she whispered. We can't wait. Call 911. Now. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat as I reached for my phone. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped it. I didn't even remember unlocking it, just muscle memory, moving faster than my thoughts. 911 call. The operator's voice crackled through. Emergency services. What's your emergency? I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. What was this? I forced the truth out, even though it sounded insane. We have a suspicious package, I stammered. There's something alive inside it. Something that was delivered to my home this morning. A pause on the other end. Ma'am, are there any visible threats? Is the package leaking or damaged? No leaks, but... I looked down, my voice catching. I looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. Scratching sounds, I said. Like some kind of animal trying to get out. Multiple animals, I think. There are holes, Rachel said loudly enough for the dispatcher to hear. Breathing holes punched in the cardboard. Ma'am, I understand you believe there may be animals inside this package. I'm dispatching animal control to your location immediately. However, since this is also a suspicious package that was delivered without proper identification, I'm also sending police officers. This could potentially be criminal activity. Criminal activity. The words hit me like a physical blow. Can you move to another room and maintain a safe distance from the package? Officers and animal control should arrive within 12 minutes. Do not touch or move the package under any circumstances. 12 minutes. It felt like a lifetime when something potentially dangerous was sitting on my kitchen table, growing more agitated by the moment. I hung up and looked at Rachel. They're sending both police and animal control. They said this could be criminal. The question I'd been dreading hung in the air between us. But even as I tried to avoid it, I knew the answer. The timing was too perfect, too calculated. Mother's Day. Exactly 1 week after our confrontation. The argument, Rachel said quietly. She was so angry when she left. She didn't need to say Amber's name. We were both thinking it, both arriving at the same horrifying conclusion. But this, I gestured toward the package. This isn't just anger. This is revenge. Rachel finished, the word hanging between us like poison. My own daughter, the child I'd raised, sacrificed for, loved unconditionally, had sent me something designed to terrorize me on Mother's Day. The scratching started again, more frantic this time. Whatever was inside was definitely waking up, becoming more agitated by our voices and movement. What kind of person does this to their own mother? I whispered, my voice breaking. The sound of car doors slamming outside made us both jump. Through my front window, I could see a police cruiser pulling into my driveway. 2 uniformed officers emerged, walking toward my door with the confident stride of people trained to handle dangerous situations. Then a firm knock on the door. Rachel opened it just enough to peek. "It's them." 2 uniformed officers stepped inside with calm, deliberate movements. One of them, a woman named Officer Penley, took one look at my face and nodded. "Where's the package?" "In the kitchen," I managed. "On the table. It's alive." As if on cue, the scratching resumed, more desperate now, more frantic. "Definitely something alive," Officer Penley confirmed. "Animal control is en route, but first—" She leaned closer, studying the box intently. They didn't blink. They moved in sync, unclipping gloves from their belts as they entered the kitchen. Rachel and I stayed in the hallway, watching through the crack in the door. They approached the box like bomb technicians, silent, steady, controlled. Officer Penley leaned in cautiously, her gloved hand hovering near the edge. Then she froze. "Ma'am," she said slowly. "There's a web." We all followed her gaze. A single thread of silk was trailing from one of the air holes, glinting in the sunlight. So fine it was almost invisible. But unmistakably there, delicate silver thread clinging to the cardboard. "Spider web." Rachel gasped. "It wasn't there before." Officer Chin stepped back. "It moved. There's something alive in there. And it's spinning." The box gave another twitch. Only this time it didn't stop. Penley leaned down and shined a flashlight into one of the breathing holes. She froze again. Then she stepped back so fast her partner instinctively reached for his sidearm. "Officer Chun," she said, her voice tight. "Look at this." He moved closer, and I watched his face pale. "What is it?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "Ma'am," Officer Penley said carefully, "did you look in to see the contents of the box at any point?" I looked where she was pointing and felt my blood turn to ice. "Oh God," Rachel whispered behind me. "We need animal control here immediately," Officer Penley said into her radio. "Possible venomous spider delivery. Request emergency response. Venomous spiders. In a box. On my kitchen table. Sent by my own daughter." The scratching intensified, as if the creatures inside could sense the attention they were receiving. "How many do you think are in there?" Officer Chin asked quietly. "From what I saw and the size of the box," Officer Penley replied, "at least 5 black widow spiders. All alive. Maybe more." I felt the hallway tilt beneath me. I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. 5 venomous spiders. Sent to terrorize a 76-year-old woman on Mother's Day. Rachel let out a noise somewhere between a gasp and a sob. The officer continued, her voice low but sure. "We're going to secure the package. Do not approach it again. Ever." They moved fast, sealed the box in a thick containment bag, and carried it out as if it were radioactive. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. The full horror of what Amber had done crashed over me like a wave. She hadn't just sent me something scary. She'd sent me something that could actually kill me. Something that, if it had escaped, if I'd opened that box unsuspecting. "Ma'am, you did exactly the right thing by calling us," Officer Penley said. "These packages are extremely dangerous. If you'd opened it." She didn't need to finish the sentence. "We're going to need to take statements from both of you," Officer Chin said. "And we'll need to know if you have any idea who might have sent this." I looked at Rachel, seeing my own anguish reflected in her eyes. My daughter had tried to hurt me. The child I'd raised had become someone capable of attempted murder. And somewhere out there, Amber was probably waiting for news of what her gift had accomplished. Unaware that the war she'd declared was no longer just emotional. It had become deadly. The officers took the box away in a sealed crate, but the silence they left behind was louder than anything that had happened that day. I stood at the kitchen window long after the sirens faded, gripping the sink like it could hold me upright. 5 black widows. On Mother's Day. Amber hadn't needed to put her name on the package. Her handwriting wasn't on it. Her fingerprints were probably nowhere near. But I knew. Every part of me knew. Still, when Officer Chen asked if I had any idea who might have sent it, I just shook my head. No. I can't imagine who'd do something like this. Rachel's eyes flicked to mine, and I could feel the fury beneath her silence. But she didn't speak either. Not yet. Ma'am, the officer Penley said gently, we'll file this as a criminal incident, possible attempted intimidation with dangerous wildlife. If you recall anyone acting strange lately, you should tell us. I gave a small nod. Of course. After they left, I felt the weight of it settle. Not just the danger, but the betrayal. I didn't want revenge. I wanted her to feel the reality of what she'd done. I wanted her to look in the mirror and see herself clearly, see the monster she was becoming. Rachel's voice broke through the silence. Do you want to press charges? I opened my mouth, closed it, then slowly shook my head. No. Why not? She asked, stunned. Because that would be too easy for her. Too clean. I turned toward her. I want her to feel what it's like to live with consequences. Real ones. Rachel stared at me, waiting. I picked up my phone, then stopped. A thought hit me like a jolt. Wait, I said. The Arnolds. They have a Ring camera facing the street. Rachel's face lit up with sharp recognition. You're right. And they were loading their car around that time, Mother's Day morning. We were knocking on their door 3 minutes later. Mr. Arnold didn't ask questions. He just pulled up the footage from his phone. We huddled around the screen. There it was. 9:43 a.m. Amber's car, pulling up on the curb across the street. Engine idling. She sat inside for nearly a minute before the passenger door opened. A man got out. Young, tall, hoodie pulled over his head. He carried something under one arm. He approached my porch. And then, a fast motion. He bent, placed the box. Didn't even ring the bell. Just walked away. Back into Amber's car. She drove off without even glancing at the house. Didn't knock. Didn't say hello. Didn't even try to pretend. Rachel exhaled hard beside me. That's her. That's her car. That's her timeline. There was no footage of her placing the box herself, but the truth didn't need a close-up. The cold logic of it, the coordination, the silence, it was her. All of it. We thanked Mr. Arnold and walked back home slowly, the weight of what we'd seen sitting heavy on our shoulders. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the empty space where the box had been. She was here, I whispered. And she didn't even look at me. Rachel sat down across from me, her voice shaking. That could have killed someone. I nodded. And she knew that. The grief came in waves, first a tight ache behind my ribs, then a rush of nausea, then the sharp, quiet tears I didn't bother to wipe away. And yet, underneath the hurt, something else was growing. Steel. Resolve. She hadn't sent those spiders because she wanted to hurt me physically. She wanted power. Control. Fear. And I was done giving her any of it. I looked at Rachel. Will you help me teach my daughter what it means to feel real consequences? Rachel's eyes sharpened. You don't even have to ask. We sat there for a long moment. No words. Just shared resolve. Then Rachel cracked the faintest, bitterest smile. Let's give her a taste of real fear. The trap had to be perfect. Measured. Believable. Deadly serious, but just shy of criminal. Rachel and I planned it in hushed voices over strong coffee. The kind you drink when you haven't slept and don't trust yourself not to collapse. We couldn't go back in time. Couldn't undo what she'd done. But we could make Amber look in the mirror and feel what it was like to be powerless. Just like she'd made me feel. And it started with a lie that was too close to the truth. Are you sure you want to do this? Rachel asked for the 10th time. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The plan was simple but devastating. Amber thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. Time to show her what real strategy looked like. We waited until dusk. Until the sky bruised over and the day quieted. Ready? Rachel asked. I nodded, closing my eyes and letting my face go slack. Make the call. Then she picked up her phone with hands that didn't shake. She dialed Amber. Put her on speaker. The line rang twice. Then, hello. Amber's voice. Annoyed. Distracted. Rachel didn't wait. Her voice trembled just enough to sound real. Rachel's fingers flew over the screen. Amber's number. We both held our breath as it rang. Hello. Amber's voice came through the speaker, cautious but curious. Amber? Rachel's voice cracked with perfectly manufactured panic. Oh God, Amber, something terrible has happened. Who is this? Rachel? Why are you calling me from? The house is full of police. Rachel interrupted, her voice rising to near hysteria. Someone sent Margaret a package with 5 live black widow spiders inside. One of them got out and bit her. The silence on the other end was deafening. What? Amber's voice was barely a whisper. They just rushed her to the hospital in an ambulance. Rachel sobbed into the phone. She's unconscious, Amber. The doctors said. They said the venom hit her system hard because of her age. She might not make it through the night. I had to bite my lip to keep from smiling. Rachel was magnificent, every word dripping with authentic terror. But that's... Amber's voice faltered. That's impossible. How did? The police found the package, Rachel continued, her voice shaking. They said it was attempted murder. They're treating this as a criminal investigation now. Another long pause. I could practically hear Amber's mind racing, trying to process the implications. Where is she now? Amber asked, and I caught something in her voice. Not concern. Fear. Self-preservation. St. Mary's Hospital ICU. The police are on their way to question everyone who had access to her address, everyone who might have known her routine. They said they're going to interview family members first. Family members? Amber's voice cracked. They said whoever did this knew Margaret's schedule, knew she'd be home alone on Mother's Day morning. They said it had to be someone close to her, someone with intimate knowledge of her life. The silence stretched so long I wondered if Amber had hung up. Amber? Rachel pressed. Are you there? You need to know. The police specifically asked about you. They said adult children are often suspects in elder abuse cases involving. I have to go, Amber said abruptly. Wait, don't you want to come to the hospital? Your mother is. The line went dead. Rachel and I stared at each other for a moment before breaking into grins. Did you hear that? Rachel whispered. She didn't ask which hospital. She didn't ask what room number. She didn't even ask if Margaret was conscious. She asked if the police were coming for her. I said, sitting up in bed. That tells us everything we need to know. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, but we both recognized the writing style. Can't talk right now. Family emergency. We'll call later. She's panicking, Rachel observed. Good. Let her sweat. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Phase 2, I said, reaching for my own phone. Call the hospital and ask to be transferred to the ICU. I want Amber to be able to verify our story if she tries to call. Rachel raised an eyebrow. How are we going to manage that? I smiled. Easy. We tell them the truth, that we're testing someone and we need their help with a family situation. Most hospital staff understand domestic abuse situations. They'll help us if we explain what's really happening. 20 minutes later, we had the hospital's cooperation. If anyone called asking about Margaret Richardson, they'd be told she was in the ICU in serious but stable condition, and that due to the ongoing police investigation, no information could be released without proper identification. Now what? Rachel asked. Now we wait, I said. And we prepare for phase 3. My phone rang an hour later. Unknown number, but I knew who it was. Hello. I answered weakly, as if I could barely speak. Mom. Amber's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Mom, is that you? Amber? I whispered, making my voice sound frail and confused. Where am I? Everything's so foggy. You're in the hospital, Mom. Someone sent you something dangerous. The spiders, I breathed, injecting real terror into my voice. There were so many of them. They were everywhere. One of them, I remember feeling the bite, and then everything went black. Mom, listen to me. Do you remember anything about the package? Anything about who might have sent it? The desperation in her voice was music to my ears. She wasn't asking about my condition. She was asking about evidence. The police keep asking me questions, I continued weakly. They said someone wanted to hurt me. They said it had to be someone who knew me, someone who knew I'd be alone on Mother's Day. What did you tell them? The words came out sharper than she'd intended. I told them I couldn't think of anyone who would want to hurt me, I said. But they said they're investigating everyone close to me. They have security footage from the neighborhood, they said. They're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear Amber's rapid breathing through the phone. I have to go, she said finally. I'm I'm coming to see you. The doctor said no visitors except immediate family, I said quickly. And only if the police approve it first. They said whoever did this might try to finish what they started. Another pause. I'll figure something out, Amber said, but her voice lacked conviction. Just rest, Mom. Don't talk to anyone else about this. The line went dead. I looked at Rachel, who was staring at me with something approaching awe. That was brilliant, she said. Did you hear how scared she was? Not scared for you, scared for herself. She's going to try to cover her tracks now, I predicted. She'll probably get rid of any evidence, maybe even try to establish an alibi for Mother's Day morning. Too late for that, Rachel said grimly. We already have the security footage. I settled back into my pillows, feeling more energized than I had in weeks. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was the one in control. Amber had thought she could terrorize an old woman with venomous spiders and face no consequences. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The hunt had begun, and this time I was the predator. Amber didn't sleep that night. We knew because by morning, Rachel's phone had 17 missed calls and 5 voicemails, each one more frantic than the last. The first sounded defensive. Hey, just calling back. I hope everything's okay. That spider stuff sounds insane. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. The second was clipped, jittery. Rachel, it's me again. Is Margaret really okay? I mean, why would she give the police my name? I haven't done anything wrong. Why would she even think to mention me to them? Call me back. By the fourth message, recorded at 3:17 a.m., she was completely unraveling. I'm serious, Rachel. This has gone too far. The police still haven't shown up, but I keep hearing cars outside and I can't sleep. What exactly did you tell them about me? What did Margaret say? You need to call me back right now. Rachel and I exchanged glances. She was spiraling exactly as we'd hoped. Time for phase 3, I said, reaching for my phone. Are you sure you're ready for this? Rachel asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. I thought about the Black Widow spiders. About my grandson's faces when they called me selfish. About Amber's voice when she threatened to put me in a nursing home. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. An hour later, I was checked into St. Mary's Hospital under the pretense of observation following my spider bite incident. The staff, who we'd already briefed on our situation, were more than happy to help with what they saw as a case of elder abuse. From my hospital bed, I called Amber. Amber, I said, letting my voice sound weak and shaky. It's Mom. Mom. Oh my God, are you okay? I've been trying to reach you all night. The doctors say I can have visitors now, I said carefully. They and the police cleared you to come see me. I'm in room 314. I'll be right there, she said, and I could hear the relief flooding her voice. Don't worry, Mom. Everything's going to be okay. But I caught something else in her tone. Something calculating. She wasn't just coming to see her sick mother. She was coming to assess the damage. 2 hours later, I heard the commotion before I saw her. Where is she? Amber's voice echoed down the hospital corridor. My mother was attacked with venomous spiders. This is an emergency. The poor nurse at the desk tried to maintain professional calm. Ma'am, if you could just lower your voice. Don't tell me to lower my voice. My mother is dying. Rachel, positioned in the chair beside my bed, started recording on her phone as the voices grew closer. When Amber burst through my door, flanked by her boyfriend Marcus and my grandsons Jesse and Jordan, her first words weren't about my health. Her first words were about money. Mom, thank God you're alive, she said, barely glancing at the monitors supposedly tracking my vital signs. But listen, we need to talk about practical matters. Are you going to change your mind about the house now? We're going to need to sell it immediately to pay for all these medical bills. Even Jesse looked shocked. Mom, shouldn't we ask how Grandma is feeling first? But Amber was already pulling out her phone, apparently calculating numbers in her head. The hospital bills alone are going to be enormous. And if you need long-term care after this. Mom, you have to see that selling the house is the only logical option now. Rachel leaned forward, still recording. Amber, Margaret needs rest right now. She's still recovering from the spider venom. She looks fine to me, Amber said dismissively, studying my face with cold assessment. And we can't afford to wait. Every day we delay costs us money. I watched my grandsons' faces change as they witnessed their mother's true priorities. Jordan actually stepped backward, like he wanted to distance himself from what he was hearing. "Mom," Jessie said quietly, "Grandma almost died. Maybe we should just focus on that right now." But Amber wasn't listening. She was staring at me with something that looked almost like disappointment. Not that I'd been hurt, but that I was still alive to complicate her plans. That's when I decided to test just how far her greed would go. I let my eyes flutter closed and started making small gasping sounds, as if I was having trouble breathing. "Margaret," Rachel said loudly, playing her part perfectly. "Margaret, what's wrong?" I clutched my chest, letting my body go limp against the pillows. "Get a doctor," Rachel shouted. "I think she's having some kind of heart episode." Any normal daughter would have panicked, would have run for help, would have shown some sign of human concern. Instead, Amber stepped closer to my bed and asked, "Does she have life insurance? How much? Because if this gets worse, we need to know what we're dealing with financially." The room fell into stunned silence. Even Marcus looked horrified. "Amber, what the hell?" "What?" she snapped. "I'm being practical. Someone has to think about these things." Jordan's voice was barely a whisper. "Mom, Grandma might be dying right now. And if she is, we need to be prepared," Amber said coldly. "Do you think grief is going to pay for her funeral? Do you think emotions are going to cover her debts?" Rachel's phone captured every word, every callous calculation, every moment where Amber chose money over her mother's life. The nurses who'd gathered in the doorway stood in shock. Other families in nearby rooms had heard the commotion and were staring in disbelief. When Dr. Martinez entered and saw the crowd, he took immediate control. "I need everyone except immediate family to step out," he said firmly. Then, looking directly at Amber, he added, "And I need visitors to show some respect for the patient and other families in this facility." "She's my immediate family," Amber protested. "She's my mother, and I have every right to discuss her care and her financial situation." "Not like this," Dr. Martinez said. "Not in my hospital. I'm going to ask you to leave and come back when you can conduct yourself appropriately." After 15 minutes of arguing, Amber finally stormed out, dragging Marcus behind her. But not before turning back to me one last time. "This isn't over, Mom. That house is going to be sold, one way or another." My grandsons lingered for a moment, both looking ashamed and confused. "We're sorry, Grandma," Jessie said quietly. "We didn't know she was going to act like that." After they left, I sat up in bed and looked at Rachel. "Did you get all of that?" She held up her phone, grinning. "Every single word. The nurses got it too. And those security cameras," she pointed to the corner of the room, "captured everything." "Perfect," I said, reaching for the hospital phone. "Because now it's time for Phase 4. Over the next hour, I made 3 crucial phone calls. First, to my bank. Within minutes, Amber's name was removed from every account, every emergency contact list, every financial connection to my life. Second, to my lawyer. By tomorrow, my will would be completely rewritten. Everything would go to Rachel, with a protected trust fund for my grandsons that Amber could never touch. Third, to the hospital's security office. I wanted copies of every single second of footage from today's visit. When I hung up the phone, Rachel was staring at me with something approaching awe. "You realize that you've just done, right?" she asked. I nodded. "I've given my daughter exactly what she's always wanted from me." "Which is?" "Nothing," I said simply. "Absolutely nothing." For the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. Amber had revealed herself for exactly who she was, in front of witnesses on camera, in a place where her cruelty couldn't be hidden or explained away. She'd chosen greed over love, money over family, and now she'd have to live with the consequences of that choice. The hunt was no longer just beginning. The hunt was over. And I had won. When Amber realized she had been cut off, she stormed into my hospital room like a woman possessed. Hair wild, phone in one hand, her teenage sons and boyfriend trailing behind her like embarrassed shadows. "My cards aren't working," she shouted across the lobby. "What did you do?" Rachel stood when she entered, stepping protectively in front of my bed. I stayed perfectly still, wrapped in the hospital blankets, pale, eyes half-lidded, still recovering from the venom. Amber's eyes burned into me. "I know you did something. I can't access anything. My name's gone from the mortgage, the savings, everything." I blinked slowly. "The doctors said the spider bite may have affected my memory. Rachel is handling my affairs now." "Rachel?" Amber whirled around to face my friend, her eyes wild. "You have no legal right to." "She has power of attorney for medical decisions," I said quietly. "The doctors insisted, given my condition." Amber let out a strangled laugh, half hysterical. "You can't be serious. It was just a harmless prank. You were supposed to be scared, not still alive playing legal games." The room fell into stunned silence. Even Marcus stepped backward, staring at his girlfriend as if he'd never seen her before. Jesse's face went white. "Mom, what did you just say?" "Did you?" Jordan's voice cracked. "Did you send those spiders to Grandma?" But Amber was too panicked to realize what she'd just confessed. "Of course I did. But they weren't supposed to actually bite you. It was supposed to just scare you into selling the house." Rachel's phone was capturing every word, every admission, every moment of Amber's complete breakdown. "You tried to take out Grandma?" Jesse's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't try to take out anyone." Amber snapped. "It was just supposed to be a warning. A little motivation. But now she's using it as an excuse to cut me out of everything." I watched my grandsons' faces as the full horror of their mother's actions sank in. All those lies she'd told them about me being selfish, about me not caring about family. And here she was, admitting she'd tried to terrorize their grandmother with venomous spiders. "You're sick," Jordan said, backing away from his mother. "You're actually sick. Don't you dare judge me." Amber screamed. "Everything I did was for this family. For you boys. She was never going to give us anything willingly." That's when she turned back to me, her eyes blazing with desperate fury. "Listen to me very carefully, Mother," she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You're going to reverse whatever you did to my bank access, and you're going to do it right now. Or I'll have you declared mentally incompetent. I'll tell everyone you're having delusions, that the spider venom affected your brain." "Amber." Marcus started, but she cut him off. "I'll say you're paranoid, confused, unfit to make financial decisions. I'll get guardianship, and then I'll sell that house whether you like it or not." But Rachel was ready for this. "Actually, Amber," my friend said calmly, holding up her phone, "we have recordings of everything you just said. Your confessions. Your threats about declaring her incompetent." Amber's face went white. "You can't, that's illegal. You can't record me without my permission." "Actually," I added, sitting up straighter in my bed, "hospital security cameras record everything. Every threat you just made. Every confession. Every moment where you admitted to attempted murder." The blood drained from Amber's face as the full implications hit her. "You set me up," she whispered. "No," I said firmly. "I gave you rope. You chose to hang yourself with it." Marcus was staring at Amber like he'd never seen her before. "My goodness, Amber. You actually tried to take out your own mother. It wasn't supposed to hurt her." Amber screamed, but even she seemed to realize how hollow that sounded. Jesse and Jordan were backing toward the door, both looking sick. "We're leaving," Jesse said quietly. We can't be here right now." "Boys, wait," Amber called after them, but they were already gone. Marcus lingered for a moment, looking at Amber with something between disgust and pity. "You need help," he said simply. "Serious help." And then he left too. Amber stood alone in the middle of my hospital room, her empire of lies and manipulation crumbling around her. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice lacked conviction now. "I'll fight this. I'll find a way." "No," I said, looking her directly in the eyes. "It is over. You chose greed over love, money over family, violence over patience. And now you have to live with the consequences of those choices." "I'm still your daughter," she said, and for the first time, I heard something that might have been genuine emotion in her voice. "No," I said quietly. My daughter died the day she sent venomous spiders to her mother's house. You're just a stranger who happens to share her DNA. Amber's face crumpled, but I felt no satisfaction in her pain. Only relief that the game was finally over. After she left, Rachel and I sat in silence for a long moment. "How do you feel?" she asked finally. I thought about it. For the first time in years, I felt free. "Like I can finally breathe again," I said. Outside my hospital window, the sun was setting. But for me it felt like dawn. The nightmare was over. And I had my real family, Rachel, and hopefully someday my grandsons, to help me rebuild. 3 days later, I walked out of St. Mary's Hospital feeling lighter than I had in years. Section 10. The Public Confrontation. 3 days later, I walked out of St. Mary's Hospital feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because of any medication or treatment, but because for the first time in decades, I was free from the weight of Amber's manipulation. Rachel helped me into her car, my discharge papers tucked safely in my purse alongside the real treasure. Copies of every recording, every security video, every piece of evidence of what my daughter had truly become. "Ready to go home?" Rachel asked, starting the engine. I looked at the hospital in my rearview mirror, the place where Amber had finally revealed her true nature to the world, and smiled. I've never been more ready for anything. The drive home was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in months, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next crisis, the next demand, the next emotional ambush. When we pulled into my driveway, I expected to see the familiar emptiness of a house that had become a battlefield. Instead, I saw 2 tall figures sitting on my front porch steps. Jesse and Jordan, my grandsons, waiting for me with suitcases beside them and expressions I hadn't seen in years. Uncertain, hopeful, and completely free of their mother's rehearsed anger. "Grandma!" Jesse stood as Rachel and I approached. His voice cracked slightly, the way it used to when he was little and unsure. Can we talk to you?" I looked at their faces, really looked at them, and saw past the manipulation, past the lies their mother had fed them. I saw the boys I'd raised, the children who used to run to me with scraped knees and broken toys. "Of course," I said, unlocking my front door. "Come inside." We gathered in my living room, the same room where family photos still hung on the walls, where memories of better times lived in every corner. But this time felt different. Clean. Honest. Jordan spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. "We saw the hospital recordings. The police showed them to us when they came to question Mom. We had no idea," Jesse added, his 17-year-old composure cracking. "All those things she said about you being selfish, about you not caring about us, we believed her. She's our mom," Jordan continued. We thought she was protecting us from you. But she was protecting herself." I felt my heart breaking and healing simultaneously. These boys, my boys, had been as much victims of Amber's manipulation as I had been. "Those spiders could have killed you," Jesse said, tears forming in his eyes. "Our own mother tried to hurt you, and then when you were in the hospital, she only cared about money." "We heard her," Jordan added, "asking about life insurance while you were having a heart episode. What kind of person does that?" The guilt and shame in their voices was overwhelming. These children had been weaponized against me, turned into soldiers in their mother's war, and now they were realizing the cost of that manipulation. "Boys," I said gently, "you're not responsible for your mother's choices. You were children trying to survive in an impossible situation." "But we said such horrible things to you," Jesse whispered. "We called you selfish. We said you didn't care about family. You said what you'd been taught to say," I replied. "That's not your fault. That's hers." Rachel, who had been quietly observing from the kitchen doorway, stepped forward. "Your grandmother never stopped loving you. Even when it hurt, even when she didn't understand why you were angry with her." "We want to make it right," Jordan said suddenly. "We're 18 now. We can make our own choices. And we choose to be here with you if you'll have us." I looked at their suitcases, understanding dawning. "You want to stay here?" "Mom's under investigation," Jesse explained. "The police said there's enough evidence for elder abuse charges, maybe fraud too. But even if there wasn't, we can't live with someone who would try to hurt their own mother. We want to be here," Jordan added. "If you'll forgive us. If you'll let us try to be the grandsons you deserved." The tears came then, not the bitter tears of loss and betrayal I'd cried so many times over the past months, but tears of relief, of healing, of family truly coming home. "There's nothing to forgive," I said, opening my arms. "You're always welcome here. This is your home." Both boys collapsed into my embrace, and for the first time in years, my house felt full of love instead of tension. Over the next few weeks, my life transformed in ways I'd never imagined. Jesse and Jordan moved into their old rooms, the same rooms where I'd read them bedtime stories and helped them with homework during their mother's many disappearances. But this time they were here by choice, not necessity. Rachel, who had been staying in the guest room to help with my recovery, never left. Not because I needed the help, but because we'd discovered something beautiful. We were family by choice, bound by love and respect rather than obligation and manipulation. "I should probably go back to my own place," she said one evening as we prepared dinner together, a daily ritual that had become one of my greatest joys. "Why?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Well, you're recovered now. Your grandsons are here. You don't need—" "I don't need you," I interrupted gently. "I want you. There's a difference." She smiled, the kind of smile that lights up a room and fills empty spaces in your heart. "In that case, I'd love to stay." The investigation into Amber's actions moved forward with mechanical precision. The recordings, the security footage, the witness statements from hospital staff. It all painted a clear picture of elder abuse, attempted intimidation, and financial manipulation. She tried to contact Jesse and Jordan repeatedly, but they'd changed their numbers, blocking her from their lives as completely as she'd tried to block me from her financial planning. I thought about the daughter I'd raised, the little girl who used to call me Mommy, and draw pictures of us as queens of the world. That child was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. But in losing her, I'd gained something precious, a real family built on love, respect, and choice. The following Mother's Day arrived like a gift wrapped in spring sunshine. I woke up to the smell of coffee and pancakes, to the sound of laughter echoing from my kitchen, to the warmth of a house filled with people who chose to be there. Rachel had made my favorite breakfast. Jesse had picked flowers from the garden his grandfather had planted decades ago. Jordan had written me a letter, not because anyone told him to, but because he wanted me to know how grateful he was for my love and forgiveness. We spent the day together, not avoiding the past, but celebrating the future we were building together. That evening, as the boys studied at the kitchen table, both had enrolled in community college with my enthusiastic support, and the house settled into peaceful quiet, Rachel and I sat on the front porch, watching the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Standing up to Amber? Everything that happened. I thought about it, really thought about it. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, the spiders, all of it." "No," I said finally. "For the first time in my life, I'm surrounded by people who love me for who I am, not what I can give them." "The boys are doing so well," Rachel observed. "Jesse got accepted to the state university. Jordan's considering pre-med. They're going to do amazing things," I agreed. "And they'll do them with love and support, not guilt and manipulation." Rachel reached over and took my hand. "I have something to tell you." I looked at her, this woman who had become my anchor, my joy, my chosen daughter. "I've been thinking about what you said, about family being a choice," she continued. "And I want you to know that choosing you, choosing this life, choosing to be here, it's the best decision I've ever made." I felt tears forming, the good kind, the kind that come from overwhelming gratitude. "You're the daughter I always deserved," I said, squeezing her hand. "Blood doesn't make family. Love does. Respect does. Choice does." "What about the house?" she asked. "Your will." I smiled. "This house will stay in the family, the real family. You'll inherit it, along with the boys. It will be filled with love, not manipulation. Laughter, not threats. And Amber?" I looked out at the street where she'd once parked to deliver venomous spiders to her own mother's doorstep. "Amber made her choices," I said simply. "Now she gets to live with the consequences." As the sun set on this perfect Mother's Day, one filled with genuine love instead of manufactured obligation, I felt a peace I'd never known was possible. My house was no longer a battlefield. It was a home. My family was no longer held together by guilt and fear. It was bound by choice and love. And I was no longer a victim of manipulation. I was a survivor who had built something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. The little girl who had once drawn pictures of us as queens of the world was gone. But the woman I'd become, surrounded by Rachel, Jesse, and Jordan, sitting in the home my late husband and I had built together, I was finally, truly, the queen of my own life. And that was worth everything. 2 years later, I received a graduation invitation. Jesse, graduating summa cum laude with a degree in engineering. On the invitation, in his careful handwriting, he'd written, "To Grandma, thank you for showing me what real love looks like." Jordan sent a similar invitation 6 months later, pre-med, just as he'd planned, with a note that read, "Thank you for teaching me that family is about lifting each other up, not tearing each other down." Rachel and I attended both ceremonies, proud as any parents could be. Amber never tried to attend. According to the boys, she'd moved across the country after the investigation concluded, starting over somewhere no one knew her story. Sometimes I wondered if she ever thought about the family she'd lost through her own choices. If she ever regretted choosing greed over love, manipulation over honesty. Real family, I'd learned, isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, choice, and the courage to protect what matters most. If this story moved you, if it sparked memories of someone you're fighting for, or someone you finally found the courage to stand up to, then take a second, like this video. Share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. And drop a comment below. I read every one. This is a space where your voice matters. If you want more true stories about the breaking points that change everything, hit the subscribe to our channel Betty's Stories and turn on notifications. More stories are coming. Because in a world that tries to silence the betrayed, sharing your story is an act of courage.